Welcome back to another Evolve podcast. We have another amazing guest on with us today. Luke Asper's with us. Luke, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, awesome. Good. Yeah, where are you located right now?
So we're in Dallas, Texas, or DFW.
Awesome. Hopefully you're staying safe down there. I know there's quite a bit more cases down there than Vermont right now.
Texas is a pretty big place, though. So
that's true. You got lots of space, so that's okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
First of all, I'm a twin.
Me too.
I'm an identical mirror twin.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
I have never met another identical. Well, maybe I have. They're very rare. That's nice. Wow. What are the odds?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So identical mirror twin. My brother also does video production in Florida.
Awesome.
He has his own thing out there. And so I started in the church world growing up, from literally being out of elementary school to needing something to do, and so kind of just fell into helping out, making videos and editing, then turned into a part-time job through high school, then turned into a full-time job after high school. Didn't go to college. Well, tried to go to college. I went for some basics and stuff, but then school's not for me, so I just stick to making videos. Did that for 4 years, and then in 2016 started my own video production company, and so that's what I do now: photo, video, mainly focusing on video.
Awesome. I know you just touched on this a little bit, but if you want to give more detail, that would be great. How did you get started and ultimately end up with owning your own studio as you do now?
So in high school, we were doing video production stuff, helping out, church camps, church events, and let's see, I have to remember how it started. Always like recorded stuff, even when we were little, making little music videos on the camera that actually had to have a tape inside of it and stuff. The only way we would edit is record, stop recording, next scene, record, like editing that type of way. So always kind of did that growing up. And then when the church needed some help, they're like, oh hey, we're growing, the children's department is now growing, so you want to help make the videos? It's like, oh yeah, of course. So learned along that way, then got hired to do students. I got hired as an editor, video editor, and then the departments kind of split off. So then I became the media coordinator who did shooting, editing, photos, graphics, did all those things right off the bat. So I got hired to do editing, and then it was like, just kidding, you're over all of it now. You have to do all these things. So I had to learn on the job to do it. So there's a lot of people there at the church that knew a lot and came from the film industry, so I was able to ask questions and learn while doing it. YouTube was my best friend. Figured out everything through all that. And then just in the 4 years, so just learned how to do video on my own, self-taught. And then because of all those things I learned, I was able to help out start and launch a social media thing called Socality. And so the day I got Instagram suggested, whenever that was a thing, was the day Scott reached out to Paul Telfson and me. It was like, hey, I have this crazy idea. No one's ever done it before. It's through social media. And then to help, like-minded people come together all over the country and all over the world. Like, what are your thoughts? And we were both like, yeah, sure. Like, let's see what happens. And so through the connections I got through social media and the skills, from video that I learned how to use. This is when DSLRs came out. The 5D Mark II finally was like a thing, and so we learned how to shoot video on that. So then learned how to use that for photos. So that those kind of like intertwined together around 2012 to 2014, launching Socality, getting the connections and seeing the creative world outside of the church was kind of like an eye-opening thing. So built great connections through that. And then in 2016, it was, working for a 9 to 5 job for something that, I didn't go to school for or like want to do.
Or have the
I never
passion for.
woke, yeah, I never
Yeah.
woke up, when I was little and was like, you know what, I'm going to make, videos for high school students. That's what I want to do. It kind of just was like what was needed, and I helped fill that position. And so kind of came to the realization that I was comfortable, not like passionate. And so like once that light bulb hit of like, oh, I'm just here for a paycheck and not
Yeah.
really here for what I'm passionate about, um, began that transition. And I was trying to look for another job somewhere else, and so did not even want to do freelance, didn't want to work for myself. um, I thought it was like a huge risk, and there's no benefits for it. There's like the people that did it, I was like, wow, why would you want to do that? Like just absolutely hated the idea. Like because I think it's because like right out of high school I had a full-time job, 401k, the benefits, everything, and I was like, why would anyone not want this?
Yeah.
And then came to that realization, like if I'm passionate, I wanted to know what I always thought the question of like what would you do if money wasn't an option, because I had to do video, had to learn photography, had to learn design, had to learn graphics, had to learn all that. And then I realized it wasn't a career question, it was like a life question, like what would you do if money wasn't an option. And so I was like, well, I would want to like be able to, the one thing I love doing with working in high school student ministry is like finding students that had this like talent that they didn't know or like weren't pursuing, and like finding and like pouring into them to like get them to be excellent and great at what they do.
Yeah.
And so it's like I would want to equip and empower people to do what they were like passionate and good with, because it's like something I wish I had, but then also like I did with the position I was in, was able to learn so much. And so then I realized it wasn't a career question, it was like a life question. And then the next question after that was like, okay, so how do I financially make that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's when freelance entrepreneurship like clicked, and it was like I can't go back to having a 9 to 5 job. And so then after that it was game over, and started because of the connections I had with Socality, was literally on a trip in Israel with all these popular famous photographers, videographers. We had like people from I think the HR from Tom's was there, presidents of other companies were there, like like friends.
Yeah,
we were just all on a bus like hanging out. And
there
so
you
I was
go.
like,
That's great.
I felt so left out. I was like, I'm just some random high school video guy making videos for a church. Like,
you're like,
why
I
am
don't
I
deserve
here?
to be with these people.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then the whole trip I was like, oh, I'm going to ask them all these questions, because I knew once I got back from that trip, I had one more conference to finish like that week. And then I was on my own. So like I had no clients lined up. I had nothing.
Yeah.
Like it was literally like, once you're done with this conference, like you're on your own. So I literally was like on that trip the full week in Israel, walking the streets of, Jerusalem, all these like historical places, like asking all these people that in my like successful photographers, freelancers, videographers, stuff like that, like what they did to start. And so literally, found, that's where I came up with the name was coming back from a Shabbat dinner, was walking back to the hotel, talking to this guy that, he's a consultant for other companies to help them with their stuff. And so I asked him like, hey, which way should I go towards this way? And he's giving me advice. Like, I'll never forget that. And he's like, oh, the name should be both Asper and Studios, because it's could be something else, but it's not just your like Luke.Asper photography or something like that. And so like I'll never forget that story of just being able to say, oh yeah, I came up with the name walking back from Shabbat in Jerusalem, old town Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Like just be able to have that story. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
That's very
came
cool.
back from that trip, and then in 3 weeks had everything, from the website to legal LLC, everything structured, set up.
Wow.
So it kind of happened. I mean, the timeline is 6 months of when I told them I wanted to, move on to literally starting, and it's all very connected, and it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. What's it like now running your own studio?
It's I don't know why people other people don't do it. I guess that's like a very,
Yep.
now I'm on the other end of like, wow, I think everyone should be doing this, or everyone should be,
Instead of the 9 to 5.
yes.
Yeah.
And even trying to hire people versus like just contracting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I tried that a year or two ago. I think it was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like felt awkward. I'm like, oh, well, we'll give you the salary knowing like the potential that they had if they were on their
Mm-hmm.
own or like doing
Yeah.
it, for themselves. So it's like very weird and an awkward position of that. So like to contract out versus hiring people on. So it's a very interesting learning curve, because I grew up, in the church, and they're not profit driven. Like the finance is not like
Yep.
a way to learn. So it's like a very new, interesting learning curve to figure that out.
Yeah,
So,
it's very different. And I've heard that from a lot of designers and from creatives. They're like, oh my gosh, once I got involved in doing this, like I am never going back to my 9 to 5 job.
yes.
And I think it's having that opportunity to do that too, and not have to be labeled to that typical 9 to 5 job. I think it's amazing. In this new studio space now that you're in, or not, this is maybe not necessarily new, but this studio space that's different from maybe someone's typical job format. How do you acquire new clients?
So I've tried marketing ads and stuff, and I feel like it doesn't really work as well as trying to sell a service.
Yeah.
The biggest way I've gotten, and learning from other entrepreneurs and stuff, that some authors and stuff, it's your reputation. I don't, for the 4 or 5 years now, this is the first year I've marketed, like tried to run ads, and they've it's not saying it doesn't work, but where my money is from, my reputation came from being able to hit deadlines. And literally like the past like few clients I had is, if my turnaround time is quick and if I can hit deadlines, because it doesn't matter if you're really talented and the best in the business, like if your relationships are not, set, if you're not easy to work with, if you can't hit deadlines, if you can't have like a good process of turnaround times, I think that's what
absolutely
ends up, because the people that have come to me said, hey, I asked around for specific questions and they all said you. And so
oh, that's great.
I learned that very early on, that it's about your relationships and connections. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, word of mouth is so powerful. I think we sometimes forget that as a tool, or at least I do myself, being currently a college student. We're so online based too that I forget that like just word of mouth and the power of people's opinions and people's reviews is really, really important. But yeah, getting things in on time, fast turnaround time is what clients want for sure. So that's great that you have those good reviews, and that's shows your hard work too. So building off of the what you said about clients and what you value for your work, what kinds of clients do you get, and what projects do you work on?
My first client from the first day that I didn't have a job was an author. So I've worked with some authors on getting video content to their new book releases, to then course type work. I've done a couple conferences. So I mean, it's a very broad question because I've done so many different things. So it's hard to say no to things because it's always like, oh, that's new, let's do it. Conferences. Last year I focused on coursework, so I did a few people's courses, but then COVID happened, and so everyone got locked in, and because of all that stuff, like it's normal. For 4 years I've always worked from home, so it was like nothing changed for me. I was like, this is
I totally get that.
Nothing really changed, but most people went to online, which was great. If you were if there's another lockdown, people that work in marketing, it's sadly going to be really good for them. So
it is.
This year it was online YouTube content. So some ministries decided to go take all their stuff online. So that kind of took a bulk of my work for this year, which is great, because it's literally what I've done in the past, but then now able to turn that stuff online, which I just think anyone should be doing that. No matter what
Oh
you
yeah,
do, you
absolutely.
need to be having a YouTube presence or a
Mm-hmm.
online presence that
Mm-hmm.
you're being able to stream.
Which of those projects that you've been mentioning have been your favorite, and why? And then maybe which have been more challenging than you initially thought?
The more challenging ones is the ones that had a contract this year, and
Mm-hmm.
then because everything got shut down, that contract kind of just doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out, I mean, it's a very specific, that's what's, this
Mm-hmm.
year has been the struggling of how to adjust contracts to, fit a global pandemic. So
Yeah.
that's
It's
what's
hard.
frustrating this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the ones, I was telling this to someone yesterday that I was potential getting a gig for, as the ones that I enjoy are the ones where the client comes and doesn't have something that they just want to copy. It's just very not creative when they're like, "Oh, here, copy this video exactly.
Yeah.
Like we want
They're
this
like, I
exactly
want this
done."
exact thing and don't let me down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and then or it's like hey, we have a whole bunch of B-roll. Can you make something happen? And it's just like, well, I didn't shoot it, so I'm gonna have to go look through all the footage.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to spend hours just like sorting through your footage to
Mm-hmm.
then trying to match your expectations to what you think is possible
Yeah.
versus
That's
what you
so hard.
actually have. So those are the ones I do not enjoy. The ones I enjoy are the ones, and what's happening now is more like passion projects of just like,
Mm-hmm.
let's go test out and see what we can do. Trying to rebuild a portfolio of like stuff I actually want versus just the, I don't want to say boring, the stuff that's paid the bills that I won't promote / can't, because people have to pay for those things. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
really promote that stuff on my website and stuff. So having creative freedom, I guess, would be the easiest thing to say that
Mm-hmm.
are my favorite ones. Doesn't really matter what type of project it is, as long as it's not, hey, go copy this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a balance of having, I guidelines from the client, and then also, here's
Yeah, and
creative freedom.
inspiration.
I think it's good. Yeah, and
Yeah.
inspiration is good, but it's also, I think you as a creator too, of course, like that creative freedom is really, really valued. With that in mind, what skills do you believe are really essential to have in your field of work?
Humility.
Yeah.
I've gotten gigs because people have said, we talked to other videographers and most of them are very arrogant and try to push their own like terms, and so, I don't know, they were just like saying, hey, like you're easier to work with. It goes back to the relationship part
Yeah.
of building clients. If you're great to work with, then it doesn't, I think clients would rather work with you than try to pull teeth with someone else that's probably really good, but if you're not good to work with, then that at the end of the day will say more about if they're going to work with you or not.
That relational aspect is huge, and not just in you looking at, oh, does their photography, does their style like match up with what with they want as a client, but if you're going to be difficult to work with as a human being, then obviously it doesn't really matter how good you are at that point, because it's networking and it's communicating effectively, and relational for sure.
Yeah. On the skills side of it, I think when you're starting out or being an entrepreneur, I think it's good to know your strengths, and then where you're weak, don't try to focus on it. Either try to find help to be able to at least that's in my, the way that I operate is, if I was to have people, I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. Like I would hire them to do their job. So I'm not going to spend time trying to focus on graphics, because that's not, I know enough to like know what I'm talking about, but I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not a designer. I don't think that way. So I will focus on, giving that person all, like for the logo. I made my logo like when I first started, because when I first was like trying to find someone to make my logo, I was like, oh, how much would you charge? And then they told me, I was like, never mind, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, you're like, forget it. I'll never mind.
First starting off, I was like, nope, never mind. I can use Illustrator and Photoshop, so I'm good. And then when I was able to then, had money to be able to invest in that type of thing, when I rebranded, I didn't really rebrand. I just, found a designer that I liked their work, and I was like, hey, can you make a style guide? Can you actually evaluate or like make my logo better? And they were like, oh, I liked your logo. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna tell you how long it took me to make that, because
because I did it myself. And
yeah, I was like, oh, well,
yeah.
thank you. And so they just made it better, elegant style guide, made everything to it. And so I wasn't gonna do it. I could do it, but I don't. Like, I knew my strengths is in video, so I'll stick to video. So knowing what you're good at versus what you should delegate or outsource is, I think, a good thing to know starting out.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask if you have any kind of additional thoughts to add to this about advice that you would give young people who are looking to get into the field that you're in.
Bargaining. Bargaining is probably, that's what helped me. The first thing I did is I had a very close friend, again, relational. We met years before I started my own business, and we just connected. We were great friends. And then when I was starting out, I needed portfolio content and a website. And so he was like, hey, I need interviews of my clients. Would you shoot it? I'll make your website. I'll pay you with giving you a website. You get the footage. You'll be able to use it for your portfolio. It's a win-win. And that was probably, I mean, I still use that footage because of like the quality that we did. And it was great because there was no pressure. There's not the awkward pressure of like, oh my gosh, I have to make this perfect for this person. Like I had full creativity about it, how it was, shot, edited. And so it helped I was able to use that footage on my website, which was great. That's awesome. He was able to give. So I love bargaining. I think it's, things that people don't think about, but I mean, I've gotten shoes from bargaining. made a
I'm all about it. Yes.
A startup shoe company that was a friend of mine that I worked with before. And I was like, hey, like, give me some shoes and I'll make your video. Like, this is great. Like, I love your product. So like investing in, companies that you like. I had a free couch once. They're very expensive.
Love free furniture.
Yes, it was great.
Keep bargaining your way.
Yes. So, and then, and because like it was legit stuff, like it looks great on your website portfolio. So I think bargaining is definitely great. I don't think you should bargain for things you don't believe in, because then it'll make you feel like you're doing them a favor, or they'll think they're doing you a favor, versus both y'all being passionate about that bargaining agreement. I mean, I feel like it's the most generic entrepreneur thing. Go do free work, but don't do free work. That's great. You'll get something out of it.
No, absolutely. And I don't think we asked this question to everyone who is a guest on this podcast, and I don't think we've had anyone say bargaining, or at least give it in the frame that you're giving it in. And so I think that is a tool, and that is something that you can use. Absolutely.
Yeah. So bargaining, relationships, even if you don't work with that person, it's another type of like networking. Don't go to networking.
It's all networking
events. That'll be another tip. Don't go to networking events. Well, not about it.
Why? What's your? So does this come from personal experience?
Yes. So I hired a marketing guy to go and market, and so he decided to go through networking events. And when you go to networking events, you're trying to get work. And then you realize everyone else there is doing the exact same thing. They're not there to find talent. They're there to do the exact same of get work. And so nothing worked. It didn't know none of the events. And then there's even like networking events that charge you to go to them. The most networking I got is from like either like a conference, or when Insta Meets was a thing, like the actual events that weren't networking, but just like meeting the right people in the right space. Like
I think networking can happen at any social gathering, if it's just like a professional, workplace gathering. I don't think it doesn't have to just happen at a networking event. And I think there's also a pressure kind of placed on when you go to those type of events. I haven't been to a ton, but the one I have gone to, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to get people's contact information. And it's just, there is a type of pressure. And I think it's not personalized sometimes.
And they're usually looking for your you to give them money.
Yes.
Buy their service. And so it's just
yeah, I'm all about the free networking. And I think social media makes that easier. I know I had an experience on TikTok the other night where a video came up of a girl saying like, everyone like comment your LinkedIn profiles and your like the field that you work in. Let's get a whole community together. And it was really great to just see network happening on TikTok as a platform, and all these like marketers and business consultants, financial advisors, just like all these people in the comments were like, yes, happy to connect with you, endorse your skills. And that was really cool to see. I'm like, wow, it's just like we're at a new level of like what networking is, especially lately with, the pandemic that we're still very much in. It's just it's very cool to see. It's kind of it's a new way that things are going. So can you give an example of when you felt imposter syndrome and how you really overcame that?
Yes. My second client that I ever had was a New York best time seller, whatever, author for every book he ever wrote. I worked with his business marketing guy here in Dallas, and he was in Nashville. And so the first client I had, I hit deadlines, I did everything. Like we worked really well together. And the guy in Nashville was asking his circle, hey, who has worked with a videographer that's, humble, can hit deadlines, and is, reasonably priced, and the guy I worked with was like, oh, hey, I got this guy. Like 2 months in, he's like, hey, this guy wants to work with you. I'm like,
oh no.
What? Like I was like, it was in the church world, he was like pretty big. So like everyone knew about him. And a few months ago, I was making high school videos, and now this best time selling author guy wanted to work with me. And and it was very like, there's no way, I haven't been doing this for long enough. I can't, like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And so the thing that helped me through that was asking, is a business finance guy. So he was able to like help me land this client, like pitch the budget and everything, like, hey, I should do this. And he's like, this is probably what he's expecting. You should go in saying this, like pretty much asked for advice. Like I asked someone that is, he was successful in his businesses and stuff. And so I ask a lot of questions, or like never stop learning. So I feel like that's every situation, every job I get. I'm like, there's no way I'm supposed to be doing this, but like being able to learn to do it, you'll see all the motivational quotes, like say yes and figure out how to do it later. That's definitely a thing. I think the part that'll get you in trouble is if you say yes to something and then underbid it. So like knowing your worth, I guess, would be the answer. I think if you know your worth, then you won't really deal with that.
Saying yes in the sense of, you have the skills and you have the confidence to still get done what needs to get done.
Yeah. And then those people are people also, like when I got the gig and I hung out with him, like just normal people, like people are people. Like I don't fangirl over people. Like if you work with these people, you're just like, that's a human. They probably are actually annoyed that people fangirl or freak out about it, or when people are like, oh, dream client, I wish I could work with them, blah blah blah. I'm like, at the end of the day, it's a client, they have a need, and you can provide that service or that product for them. So at the end of the day, like I think if you get past that and realize that you actually have something valuable, then it helps you get past the imposter system. There is a fake it to make it, but
there also, is.
I don't think it's really faking to make it. Is more like you're just learning. Like I'm not charging what I used to charge 4 years ago because I feel like my skill set has grown. I've only gotten faster, better equipment, learning different things. So if you don't stop learning, then that eventually goes away.
And we often, going back to what you just said about, the client is still a person. Yeah. We often forget, I think, that, people that we might look up to or we feel have a certain status, they're still just as human as we are. And I think maintaining a perspective too, that's like, I'm working with another person. I'm not, working for someone that's, necessarily above me, like just them as a human being. And so keeping that perspective, while also, of course, like valuing what you do and valuing your work, doing work that you feel is evident of who you are and what you stand for. For sure.
Literally, once you do it, then you won't I don't know. It's not like you won't have that feeling again, but it's like you'll just gain confidence to be able to do
Absolutely.
that. Maybe the next thing, I thought I was going to be able to work with that guy like in 2 to 3 years, and I worked with him in 2 months. So
Yeah. If anything, there you go. That's a testament to your character and your personality and your work ethic. Luke, thank you so much for sitting down with me and having this conversation. This was probably one of my favorites, so thank you so much.
thank you. Or I
Awesome.
guess you're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Where can people reach you or find you on social media if they want to get in contact with you?
So my Instagram is just Luke_Asper, because Instagram back in the day wouldn't let you add a period. So
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Can. So Luke_Asper on Instagram, Twitter.
Mm-hmm. For this next part, check out our Instagram exclusive series called Exposed, where creatives share their most embarrassing moments.